France and Africa and all over the world, and it's the only place you can get it. And so I got this little bracelet here and the shoes. I got jackets. I got a whole lot of stuff. That's like one of my favorite places in Philadelphia because it's uniquely Philadelphia.
All right. Representing, right?
Yeah, that's where I got these shoes for my 50th birthday.
All right.
So that was a little while ago.
Oh, just no, I was gonna say just yesterday.
Just 5 years.
So we are very excited to talk to you about this novel, this psychological thriller. Psychological thriller.
Yeah.
So for those who may have not heard about Control, can you give us the premise of Control? Spoiler free. This whole discussion will be spoiler free because Mr. Tyree wants you to have that unique experience with the book.
Right. Well, to start off with, I was successful as an author at a very young age. I started writing early, and the way I was set up, my mother's the oldest of 8, and my father's the oldest of 4. And Philadelphia has what we call row houses, where it's all these houses on one block. So you have 80 houses on one block. And I came up in the 70s, right out the baby boom era. So you're liable to have 8 people in each house. So you got like 600-700 people in Philadelphia on every block. That's a whole lot of people and a whole lot of density. So there's a whole lot of stories to be told. And when you live in that type of household, I came up with my aunts and uncles and cousins. There was a whole lot of stories going on because they didn't screen anything from this young nephew, this young cousin. And so I'm around stuff I'm not supposed to see at 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. And so I already had, like this incredible knack for storytelling. So I became a writer and a storyteller writing early in my 20s. And so then having success as an author early, you think like you're gonna win all the time, you're gonna be successful all the time. And then I try to go out to Hollywood, and that's when it was like totally different.
They'll show you right.
Because now you don't have that control, and what they typically like to do with writers, authors, they want to take your idea and then they get their own people on it and stuff. And they've done that with Stephen King, they've done it with Anne Rice, Michael Crichton, he started doing his own stuff with his own team. And then of course Tyler Perry got his own money with his own team. And so you have to do it that way, otherwise they'll be in the way of everything you're trying to do. So with that, I was so frustrated at not having the control of doing some of my projects as film. It just ate me up for years. So I went away from writing books for a while because I was really trying to focus and throw my whole body into filmmaking because I had one foot in, one foot out. And as long as I still had books, I was like, well, I don't have to do film. Then I said, you know what? Let me go all the way in, and it didn't work. So now I'm back to writing books. Like this is what I can control over here.
I see that. Right.
And so now that whole idea of control, I said, well, let me deal with other people who have control issues as well. And that's all of us. We have some things that we just can't let go of. And then the older you get, the more you want to control those things.
That's
and
true.
If you have success early, then it makes it monster.
To let go of that control.
Oh, definitely. So right now, I look at, giving a kid a cell phone at 8, and they're going to be a control freak by the time they're 12 with that cell phone. Because now I got my own social media, got my own numbers, it's my own privacy, and then you have to take it away from them as punishment.
Exactly.
That's their control. So yeah, that was an element that I wanted to bring out. And then I always like, straight titles. And so my titles have always been straightforward. Control was about control. So there's no dancing fancy titles.
Just keep it clear.
We're going to talk about control issues of multiple people. And then I'm a character writer. So I created some great characters in this vehicle to have some great conversations. And so I can't wait for the book clubs to start reading. So we can finish it. And then we're going to do all the Zoom and we're going to do all the, podcasts. Let's talk about it. We got to close the room because we want to mess it up for the people that haven't read it yet.
That's right.
But it's that type of book where you want to read it 3 and 4 times and then outline stuff and have discussions. And I wouldn't have it any other way because as an older writer now, I want my book to last a while. I don't want a fast read where you just throw it. I want you to talk about it with the book clubs and your husband and other people. What do you think about this? So I can't wait to do that. So this book's going to last a long time.
Yeah, and have it spawn different conversations about control and having it, losing it, when to give it, things like that. So, so when you started writing Control, the book mostly by psychologist Victoria
Right.
Benny.
Got one psychologist from Camden, New Jersey. So, you know, when you live in Camden, you're right next to Philadelphia, but you're not in Philadelphia. So we dominate the culture because they get in our radio and our television, and they come over the bridge. But the Camden people got a chip on their shoulder, you know. We're from Camden. So I put her from Camden because she got a little chip on her shoulder. But yeah, in the essence of writing it and putting it together, you want to create characters who have control issues, and then have the narrator in the middle of it. So she's a psychologist,
She's a
but
psychologist.
she's still human.
She is
So
still
just
human,
because you
yes.
got a doctor or a lawyer, that don't mean they don't make mistakes and they're not human.
Right.
So you pick up on that immediately. She has attitudes. Now you won't. The characters don't know that, but since she's the narrator, you know it as you're reading it. And so that was interesting as well when she's trying to control things, right?
Exactly.
As a psychologist, while she's trying to help people. But that's cool to do because we're all human. So unless she's a robot, she's going to have some personality issues too. So that was cool to do that. Yeah.
And where the professional line starts and ends, and she gets how she interacts with her patients.
Right.
So all of her patients, we have 3 men, and well, including her 3 women. And I like that. I like how you split it up between. So talk to us about why you chose to do that balance.
Well, I wanted to have balance again because, of course, women do a lot more reading than guys. And, you know, the guys always say, I don't read fiction, I read nonfiction. And of course, I get into a battle all the time because I always say, well, all the creative things are fiction. Airplanes, helicopters, cars, bookstores, right? Google, Facebook, social media, creative things. So when I hear men say that I don't want to create, I'm like, wait a minute, these creative things are the things that, you know what I mean, are move us forward. But when you read nonfiction, it's just reporting on what already happened. You're not creating anything. And so I said, okay, so a lot of them are reading books just to, you know, get ahead in their jobs, or information books, or they want to model themselves off of somebody else's autobiography, and they don't read the creative book. So I said, well, I want to keep it balanced because if the women are doing all the reading, I want to make sure the guys are represented in there to represent me. I got 2 sons, I got 2 brothers, I got cousins, uncles, and all that. So I always have to battle to represent the guys who don't read books to make sure we have a proper platform. So I don't want to have a book where I'm just talking about women. I want to make sure the guys are there. But the narrator's a woman because I know who the readers are. I'm going to make sure that, you know, but yeah, we want that balance, but at the same time, I got to make sure I got a woman as the narrator.
You know, as women we're gonna pull our men into the men in our lives. It's like, you know, I was reading this about this character. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And then that way,
it's hard to do. It's hard to do because, you know, their time is so important. You know, their time is so important. You know, but they'll spend X amount of hours, you know, fiddling with video games or you know, going to the bars. You know what I mean? Drinking, talking about old times and whatnot at the bar. Watching sports. Times. I watch a lot of sports too. You know, but yeah, they'll spend time where it's more important to them to do that than to read creative characters. And then I always call my stuff faction because I'm not creating, you know, space invaders and Martians and talking bears and stuff like that. I'm writing about humans, and I write about issues that humans have. So I'm not writing about stuff that you don't relate to or can't connect to. But guys feel that I don't want to read this fiction, just give it to me. Then they'll say stuff like, put it in an audio book or put it in a movie, and they don't want the worker read it. You know, so, yeah, you got a whole lot of issues and hang-ups, but I'm always trying to protect the men because I am a man and I want to make sure, you know, I balance out the stories.
You are right. You are protective of the men, and I felt as though the men in this book, I felt they were well represented for their strengths, their control issues, their strengths, as well as their weaknesses. In this book. So let's talk about some of the. Can you say if there's a character that started your group? Did you start with Victoria, or did you start with one of the other characters?
Well, I start with it when you guys start reading. I started with the youngest character, a female rapper who wants control. And I started with that because of my Fly Girl audience. I know so many people love Fly Girl.
Yes.
Knowing that they expect stuff like, so I said, let me give them the youngest character. Because I'm older now, I got gray hairs and stuff. So I used to be the baby, the darling, the young guy of the whole right now, the older statesman that's been here for a while. So I said, okay, let me put this young character first. And she has the raunchiest mouth, she's the youngest, but once you get past her, we have other mature people in their 30s and 40s. But I wanted to start it off with her. But yeah, I created different characters that fit what was going on. So I have a director that has control issues.
Right.
He's the opposite of her. He's not as dominant, but you don't have to be dominant when you're a director. People want to be in your movies regardless. So, John Singleton is 1 year older than me. And so I interviewed him when we I interviewed John way back in the 90s, like the end of the 90s. So we're both still young, we're both doing it, and so John had this joke. He said, Omar, I'm out here in LA, and every movie I do, you get these beautiful women asking me the same question. What do I need to do to be in your movie? And both of us being, straight guys, it's like we already know, like, you're going to get in there. And John told me, like, you already know, every time we go, and I'm in California, Omar, so it's another level. And every woman, what do I need to do to be in your? And so you can get in trouble without trying to be a dominant dude. You just John Singleton, and they know you're John Singleton. You don't have to say anything. They know you're doing movies. They want to be stars. So he was dating Tyra Banks when he first did that High Learning movie. So you don't get to date Tyra Banks just off of nothing. And so I had a lot of different characters. Then I have a white hedge fund guy in there. Now white men are starting to lose a lot of control.
Yes, so Mr. Joseph Drake.
Because you start looking at black men making a lot of money in sports, business, women, Hispanics, everybody's inching up. And so now the control issue that they used to have is like, I'm not in control like I used to be. So I wanted to deal with that issue as well. And then when you're producing music, I have a producer in there. Once you give your music up, you don't control what the artist does with it. So if you give a song to Beyonce, trust me, Beyonce's gonna go wherever she wants to go with it. And at the end of the day, you're like, it's Beyonce, so we're gonna make money. So but that's not what I intended when I wrote it. But Beyonce got a hold of it, so there's a lot of control that you're gonna lose in that. And then when you start talking about music, the points on publishing, when Warner Brothers and Universal, they come in, we're gonna give you 2%.
Yes.
What? I'm not taking it. Okay, take it or leave it. And then okay, I'll take 2%. So we get all the publishing and all that stuff. So that's another element of control. So all the characters are dealing with something they can't control, and then how do they respond to that? And that's the difference. As they say, 10% is what happens to you. 90% is how you respond to it. And so they're all trying to get help on how they respond to their lack of control and their desire to have control. And we got 6 of us.
That's right. And this story takes place in our Atlanta. Our Black Mecca, Black entertainment, and where Victoria, she makes a point. It's like everybody's trying to get something. She frankly says some of these people are a trip. And what they're trying to do. So we get a nice tour of Atlanta, ins and outs and what she does. And since you mentioned Mrs. Melody first, Mrs. Melody is a trip. Mrs. Melody is...
She's going to get in a lot of trouble.
She's going to get in a lot of trouble. But she represents, to me, keep me honest, to me she represents a woman who knows the game, and she knows what her assets are, and she's in control because she doesn't want to be controlled.
Well, I can open it up for the audience. Mrs. Melody, I typically read that first chapter so but she gets into a lot of stuff. So me telling you this, she gets into a lot. But basically, she's a female rap artist who doesn't want a boyfriend, doesn't want a manager, doesn't want a label. Because all 3 of those entities are controlling. The boyfriend jumps in, don't do that. The manager jumps in, don't do that. The label jumps in, you can't do that. And so if you have a streaming device You can put your own music. And so she's like, look, I've been doing my own thing, no boy. So she makes all of her own decisions, which you can get in trouble because if you don't have an advisor to make the right decision, you know. And so that's what I typically start with, that little reading, but we go right into it. But yeah, and you have women that are like that now. Young women now, they don't have the control issues that older women in the 50s, Diana Ross and the Supremes and all that. They are doing all their own stuff. When you talk about Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B, and now we got this young girl Ice Spice, and we got all these girls that want to control exactly what they want to do. So that's real.
And so I listened and read the book, and I'm listening to Mrs. Melody, and I'm a little older than I look, and I'm you're honest, but I appreciate. I mean, it made me want to say, wait, yes, I can control when I want to do whatever, and
I can. The Janet Jackson song too. That
started
off. Now I'm all grown up. I'm on a lot. And that was what, the 80s. So a lot of these kids weren't born yet when Janet Jackson. But again, you have to look at the place he's coming from. Papa Joe supposed to be the control maniac.
He was.
And she got what, 6 older brothers, 2 sisters, and she's the last one. I might have the numbers off. She's the last. So she's way at the bottom, the baby. Now I'm at the top, and it tells you I'm the oldest grandson, so I'm like the chief. If you think about, the oldest boy, so I'm at the other side of it where I'm the control dude. Janet Jackson's at the far end, a female at the bottom. So her whole thing was, now I'm in control, which Janet Jackson. So I start off the book with that, so we get the idea of where this is very human, very factual. Mothers controlling kids.
Exactly.
Fathers controlling the house.
Remote
control. We go battle over the remote. Give me the remote.
Exactly.
Insane. The control over the kitchen. Get out the kitchen when I'm
so
cooking. Many control over the house.
You just in my way. You can't do it. Let me do it. Exactly. Right.
So we have a lot. So I want us to catch us in all these different control mechanisms that we have. So it was a very well balanced book, and that's an issue that we all have. It's very real.